Hi, this is Tutor Nick P, and this is Proverbs 339. The proverb today is crime doesn't pay. Okay, somebody wants a screenshot. Do it right now. Let's get right to it. If someone says that crime doesn't pay, it means even if you get away with crimes for a period of time, in the end, you will pay a serious price for your crimes, and it will only lead to negative results. Let's continue. If one leads a life of crime, one must always be looking over one's shoulder, and it may be hard to find true peace. So even if you get away, you always have to worry that you might get caught someday, or you might get revealed someday. So you always have to be looking over your shoulder, so it's hard to find true peace this way. But, some people may be willing to sacrifice that, but it's still hard to find that. Let's continue. The proverb first appeared during the Victorian era in Britain, and was used to encourage morality and hard work. Later, the FBI picked up this proverb as a slogan and greatly popularized it in the minds of Americans. Credit could also be given to the cartoon detective character Dick Tracy, who often repeated this phrase after catching a criminal. So in the cartoon, when they finally did catch the criminal, he would often say that. That was kind of a catchphrase by that cartoon character, crime doesn't pay. So this is another way that this kind of phrase is branded into the minds of Americans. They know this phrase from many things this way. Let's continue. Now we got 4 examples to show just the way we use it. Here's the first one. There used to be a public service announcement which repeated this proverb and encouraged people not to participate in crime. I can remember when I was a kid, this was often repeated. I think for several years they used to have the PSA, the public service announcements, advertising this basically. All right, number 2. The proverb crime doesn't pay is sometimes used sarcastically, so in an opposite way. If criminals can get off scot-free means, without any real punishment, and get away with enormous amounts of money. As sometimes you see this in a movie, or maybe even in real life. Somebody say, well, look, we know he's guilty, but he got off in the courts. So I guess crime really does pay. Sometimes you'll hear it that way. We also see this sometimes with big companies who may do crimes and they make billions and billions of dollars off of these illegal things they did. Sometimes they get caught, they get sued, sometimes, millions of dollars. Sounds like a lot of money, but nobody goes to jail. Nobody gets really punished. And if you really looked at it, what they paid in fines is minuscule in comparison to what they made by doing the crimes. If they earned that same money legally, they would have had to pay taxes multiple times more than the fine they have to pay. So you might ask, did crime pay for them? These are situations where you hear this phrase used sarcastically as well. All right, number 4. In the movie, Take the Money and Run, there is a sarcastic use of this phrase. Here is the quote. I think crime pays. The hours are good. You travel a lot. Now, this actually was a comedy. This was one of Woody Allen's zany comedies in his early days. It was a joke in the movie. Okay. All right. Number 4. After 10 years on the run, on the run from the law. So the police, the FBI, trying to look for somebody. That fugitive was finally brought to justice, which proves crime doesn't pay. So this is the normal way that, again, we hear it used. All right, now it's also important to add these extra notes here. The proverb was promoted to keep people in line with government laws. But one should also worry about crimes against humanity, crimes against God, crimes against nature. Those are just as important sometimes. Often these two are in sync and are in agreement. So a lot of times the government's laws and rules and God or religion's laws and rules, they would agree with each other. They're on the same side. And in this case, maybe people should truly follow them. However, there are examples when they are not. Sometimes a government gets too tyrannical, and their rules and laws are evil in nature, and cause harm and injustice to people, and can even enslave them. Make them into almost a slave in many ways. At that point, you must decide who is the real criminal. Okay. Remember, Nazi guards were following the law when they gassed Jews during World War II. And they didn't get away in the end, even though they said, well, I was just following the law. It wasn't me. It was the government was telling me to do this, so it's not my fault. No, after World War II was over, there were Nuremberg trials. These people were punished. They went to jail. Many of them went to jail. Some of them were even, given the death sentence for things that they did because they caused people to die, and it was really crimes against humanity in that sort of sense, okay? And this MLK, that's from Martin Luther King. Remember, Martin Luther King had that famous quote that I think I did cover before in another video. Never forget, everything Hitler did in Germany was legal. And another thing to note was at the time when Germany was making Jews look like the bad guy, they used to say that they were diseased and that they spread disease. And this was a way to get people to demonize the Jews so that other people, even if they were thinking in their mind, this isn't right, this way they think, well, they're bad anyway, they cause disease. So, of course, this was not true. They were not diseased people, but they were brainwashed by their own government to believe that. Okay, so this is what you have to look out for. So remember, there's a few different types of people. And, remember, sometimes when we die, there's a lot of people who had, NDEs. Sometimes they think that we get judged for our life, what we did here. And I don't know, if we're being judged after we're alive, remember there's three types of people here in this situation. There were those people pushing the buttons and saying they were just following the law. Would you want to be one of those people at that point? If you're really being judged for your life, would you want to be one of those people that is using the excuse, well, I was just doing what the government told me, I was just following the law? And then, unfortunately, the second group of people is the one that a lot of us fall into. The ones where we kind of know and we sense that something bad is really happening, but it's not happening directly to us, so we kind of look the other way. Even in that sense, if your life is being judged, do you want to be one of those people? And then there's the third group of people who actually stood up and said something. Those that pointed out that something's wrong. So if, let me know, which one of those people would you fall into? Which one would you want to be? If it was in the afterlife and you were being judged, which one would you want to be? All right, and we can see this throughout history. This is not the only case like this. And you might even compare it to our modern times. Are there some similarities to some things that's happening in the world today? Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments. Anyway, I hope you got it. I hope it was food for thought. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.